ask you, how do I actually put this in view? Oh, am I actually starting, Aaron? I haven't even prepared the last thing I need to do. Okay. Well, I'm not preparing. I'm just gonna go. All right. Anyways, am I being recorded? That's what matters.
Yes.
Cool. So I hear the echo though. That's weird. Should you choose the blue pill or the red pill? The blue pill is to not take data science and to not explore the deep rabbit hole that data science leads you down. Or you can do the red pill, and you can actually join a Discord right there. If you want to scan it or type in the code. I'm going to assume most of you are in the Discord because I don't know how you would have heard about this really otherwise. But if you're not, we can add you in. Okay, yeah, that's basically it for that. I guess I could tell a little bit about me. This is a little outdated, but I've worked for a couple companies, Johns Hopkins, Intel, HPE, and I've slowly tried to get more like two positions I actually thought would be cool for myself. In those positions, I was trying to align with like artificial general intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, anything like that. I kind of wanted to find a job in. Yeah, fun facts about me. I like to boulder, just came from the well, and my arms are killing me because of it. And then I like to be drones, but I kind of quit because this is my second year of crashing a $150 drone, and I'm just like, I'm done. The simulators are like 60% as good as flying in real life. So I'm like, we're just gonna do the simulators. Cheaper, yeah. And then I used the freeline skate. I don't do that too often nowadays, but that's the freeline skates you can see up there. All right, this is outdated. Our new treasurer is Aaron.
Hello.
Treasurer as in tech guy. It really is what it's translating to right now. This is Jeff. Jeff is over there. Okay. And we're graduating this term. We are looking for officers and a president. If we don't get any other people, Aaron will be the treasurer, president, and everything, which isn't actually allowed. So we need at least one other person. Okay, Kent is not here yet, but Kent is also graduating and likes to boulder too. If you're, that's like kind of the lit thing. If you're going to be an officer, you got to like bouldering. Our overall goals are really just to encourage y'all to get interested and informed in data science. There are many different things to data science. There's like the engineering part of things, which is more so like a data engineering type of thing. There's the analytics side, which can be split into a couple other things like business analytics, or you'll get into like scientific things where you're running models and stuff like that. And then there's the other like more specific machine learning area, which I tend to focus because I just think it's cool. But there also is like the practicals of, as much as you may want to do, or at least I want to do machine learning, you have to figure out how to load the database, clean the database. And so that's where we'll cover like a lot of things like NumPy, Pandas. Mainly Pandas is like useful for the data cleaning and stuff. And then we'll use TensorFlow, which we actually had a poll, and maybe we'll take a poll again before the end of this meeting of if we want to do TensorFlow or PyTorch. I've recently been converting more to PyTorch, and I just think it's better for doing a lot of more things, but TensorFlow is really easy to start up in. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Let's go to the next slide. To be involved, you just basically can come to these meetings like this where we do talks or workshops, and you can also get in the Discord, and there's resources and just different things you can find in that Discord. Also, on the Discord, we have a little section, I believe, unless Aaron removed it, where you can talk about projects. Does that still exist? It doesn't have to exist. Anyways, you can talk about in general. I'm sure general will be fun.
If you also, oh yeah, I removed that. So I recently redid all of this. My intentions for people who want to do projects, because that's really individualized and kind of like a form of itself, is that I intended it to be in forum discussions. So if you have a project you're working on and it's like super specific, you can start a new forum and then people can interact with that. And if someone else has a project that's similar, they can interact with that forum. And then if someone has a different project, create a new forum, yada, yada, yada. And so it just kind of keeps things a lot more streamlined. And that's the whole idea behind that.
Yes, it's very nice. I would have never done this without Aaron. I didn't do anything. Aaron just did it all. So I just gave him privileges. The next thing you know. All right. So enough of that, so I don't accidentally show you a password.
Is there a calendar?
So
Yes.
yes.
We should throw the data on there.
So if you look at the top,
wait, where?
you'll
How do I
see-
go to it?
What?
Oh yes, event right here. Yes.
So,
So
up
we
at the
can.
events, we have our events, basically our calendar for the year. We'll add on to it as we go. Once we get more information about the database, I was going to throw stuff up there as
Yeah, but we can put the dates on there. It's April 14th through 16th.
Okay.
I think we have that in one of the channels somewhere.
Possibly. Also, if you
it's
are
in club information, so we just got to convert that to the actual events.
If you're interested in DataFest, you want to know more information about it or to see more information about it, go into the role assignment. Travis, can you bring that up one more time?
Oh, yep. Where do you want me to go? Role
Go to role assignment. Yeah, and go ahead and click the check mark where it says DataFest, and you'll be able to see the DataFest general chat.
Oh boy.
We'll add more to that as we go on.
No, I don't know what I'm doing. No.
Just you can
go back here. Okay.
So yeah.
So if I click on it, now I have a DataFest rule. Cool. And that just opens up the DataFest like chat so that the conversations can stay in there instead of like blowing up general. So we've basically done these same slides, and only a couple of you I haven't seen before. So I'll just explain real quickly. I was kind of already doing it, but data science is this. Let me go back to the slideshow. Data science just is this big combination of a bunch of things. You have computer science getting in there, math, statistics, and then business knowledge. Some roles, like if you actually get a role in the industry, some roles will focus more on one thing or the other. But at the core, you kind of need to have some experience in all three of those big domains. And some will get more focused on the other things. So data science has some parts of machine learning. You might get a business analyst position where they don't want you to do any machine learning. They're just giving you data when they just want like the statistics of what subgroups do that like have these characteristics or whatnot. And yeah, and so and in some data science, like you won't need that much business knowledge because it's really you're just doing some type of modeling that you don't need to really know that actual stuff, and someone else is going to do it. So, but at the core, you need at least some experience with all three. All right, there's a bunch of different things we can do with machine learning. I don't know if you all have heard ChatGPT. That's like one of the big well-known things now using machine learning. But there's a bunch of places really aren't all over. Like a bunch of things use machine learning nowadays. Use it in like companies use it for their analytics. We use it for like all types of like just understanding data sets, doing cool things like face recognition programs. Like when you log into your phone, that probably uses it. So a bunch of different things use machine learning and use some form of data science. Oops, did I just like, oh cool. Use data science and things like that. All right, we are looking for future officers. I mentioned that we do need to get a treasurer and a president confirmed for next term, or our club may or may not die. So if you or someone you know would be interested in a role like that, that would be great. Just let us know. The last thing is Chevron gives us like a bunch of money each term, and so that's allowed us to get some fun things. We're thinking of doing t-shirts, and we'll have some sort of thing, so long as Soul doesn't get mad at us, or it's easy to get that. Like we'll give a couple shirts away for free and stuff, so it'll be cool. Yeah, that's basically it. With some of their funding, we were able to get a computer that has like, what is it, like a 3090 in it and stuff. And so if you're doing some type of project that really needs computing like that, let us know and we can possibly get you access to it. For the most part, I would just recommend using Google Colab. You get access to like some type of pretty decent GPU. But if you're doing something where you need 128 gigs of RAM, let us know. Okay, that's basically that. Yeah, any questions actually? Just in general, anything about the club? All right, so I didn't really have time to fully prepare for this, but I just wanted to give a little brief reminder for those who have been here. Last term, we covered pandas, NumPy, I think some SciPy too, and this is just kind of putting it together. I think we went over this last term. And so I just want to give a brief reminder of what these things look like. so we can just prepare for the rest of our meetings and for the Data Fest, which will be somewhat of a focus throughout our meetings this term. All right, so in the Data Science Club here, we do assume that you have some experience with Python. We're not teaching Python. There's plenty of other computer science clubs that teach Python, and there's really good videos that could teach Python better than me on YouTube. So unless you have like a specific question, for the most part, try to just find it on YouTube or Stack Overflow or something. Okay, so in Python, we just import our pandas library, our NumPy library, SciPy, and matplotlib so that we can plot things. These usually have to be installed, but as you can see, we're on Google Colab right now, and Google Colab has all these things pre-installed, which is really nice. You don't have to worry about anything. But usually Python makes these things pretty easy to install, but there's a couple libraries that can be difficult. But luckily Google Colab has all of it. All right, next thing we do is we are going to actually pull a data set from this Git repo right here. And Pandas allows us to read a CSV file directly from a URL. So we could download the file and put the file directory into read CSV, and then it would read that. A CSV file kind of looks like this right here, part of this, where, but if you were to actually like open it with like a notepad or just a normal text editor, you'll see that it has like columns, and they're all separate. Each entry is separated by a column, by a comma, and then when you're done with a whole row of entries, it's a new line, and then you just keep going down. And so you get a better visualization using Pandas and Python here, where you get to see each row, and it's all spaced nicely, and you don't have to see it with the terrible commas that it would actually look like. I think I actually might be able to give you an example. Yeah, this is what a CSV file looks like. So it's like, that's not going to be easy to read. So instead of manually looking at it, you can load it into Pandas with read CSV, and then you can just call head on it. So just run that again. Now we have the head. Head just shows like the first four rows or so. All right. In Pandas, we have, and NumPy also, but in Pandas, each column can have a different data type. And in those data types, in those columns, the data types can range from objects, which just means like basically we didn't have a data type for it, a specific primitive data type, to integers, floats, as you see in this example right here. Most of these are floats. And then you can have strings, but oftentimes a string will actually be an object. So you can see how the variety here is a text here, and that's what it's turning into an object here. There is, I think, a primitive actual C type, but you would have to convert it to that, where it'll actually be like a constant string or something like that. All right, there's so many things for Pandas, NumPy, and SciPy that I can't like cover in this tutorial here, or this little brief overview. But if you go Google something like for Pandas, so NumPy is like number stuff. So if you're doing some type of math things, if you're doing matrix, sine, like anything like that, if you just were to Google NumPy and then the name of the math thing, you're probably finding the function you need. If it's not there, then you could probably like Stack Overflow and someone's telling you how to use NumPy to get to that. Yeah, so that's the best way to like use NumPy. Instead of having like for me to teach and give you every single thing or a long list, the best way is just to like Google each thing you need as you need it. So Pandas is different than NumPy. It doesn't just deal with numbers, it's dealing with tables and data frames is the main focus here. So you can see we have a table here. NumPy likes like all floats. Everything has to be a float. There are columns, technically you could have a column, but these columns are like usually all the same. And you're just doing like, it would be more so a matrix. You wouldn't necessarily like call it a data frame. And so Pandas is good for manipulating CSV file type of data that's in a table that has columns and different names for those columns. And so that's what we do right here with Pandas. Pandas, if you're looking for something and you're like, oh, this must exist, Google Pandas, the thing that should exist. And if it's related to some type of data frame, table type of thing, or statistics like aggregation type of thing, you're probably going to find it. So there are unique names for things in Pandas. So one example here is value counts. You wouldn't probably think of that if you knew if you knew some type of like statistical thing, you wouldn't necessarily think of this. But what it does underneath is it takes, so right here, we're taking the variety column, which is right here, and then we're finding all the unique different variable types we can have, and we're taking the sum of that to see how many exist in that. And so if you were to like Google pandas, how do I find how many unique values or something like that, or how many times something occurs of a specific category, you could Google that, you would probably get the answer, use value counts. And so that's value counts right there. Another shortcut you can do is if you just want a bunch of statistical results, you can just do .describe on that table, on the data frame, and you'll get a bunch of things describing that data frame per column. And so that's really useful if you just want to like get the means and things real quickly. One thing though to note is if you want the mean, you don't have to call describe. You just type .mean, and you'll probably have to call it as a function like this, and then it will calculate the mean of each column. And let me just bring that back. Okay. So that's one thing. Another thing that's important for pandas is we just talked about briefly how you can select a column, but you might want to select a column and the rows you're dealing with. You might not want might want to do something like if you're looking at a data set with like people in a variety of different ages, maybe you're wanting to look at people like 65 and over or something. So then you would want to filter that. So that's what you can do right here is you put the column you want to filter on, you access that, and then you say that specific value should equal or be greater than or something right here. So we're looking for this type of flower right here, and that's all we're going to get. And then we describe that whole thing. So now we're doing a subset. We're looking at a subset of that and describing it with all those statistical different functions right here, aggregation functions. And so we'll get the mean, we'll get the counts and everything there for this type of flower. And we do that again over here, same thing, but just a different flower. And yeah, the next thing you can do is you can make your own columns, or you can overwrite a column. And so right here, length already exists. But if we wanted to normalize, normalize all the lengths between 0 and 1, there might be a shortcut way to do this, but the way I'm doing it here is I'm taking the min and max, so I'm finding the entire range, and then I'm finding, subtracting the min. So I'm basically turning everything into values from 0 to some, like I'm basically taking away if there was any negative value, which for length shouldn't happen, but we're just in case. And we're taking that range and we basically squash it so it's between 0 and 1 by dividing. All right, another thing I'm doing here is normalizing it to like a z-score here. So just dividing by standard deviation, subtracting the mean. Here I'm wanting the cosine of it, just cause why not. One cool thing about pandas is if the function doesn't natively exist in pandas, you can just send it through a NumPy function also. At least, I don't know if you can do it to a data frame, but you can do it to a series, which is just a selection of a column. So you can't do it to all the columns, I don't think. I'm not sure what would. Actually, it can if you have the same data types. But if you have like text in there, you're going to get a problem. But yeah, so if you want to use NumPy, you can throw in some NumPy stuff with your pandas. Another thing is if you want a subset of your data frame, oops, let's go where the, okay. You can take a subset of those columns by making another list within your selection and then listing the columns you want. And then if you do .values, it turns it from that pandas data frame to a NumPy array. And so if you're wanting to just do pure NumPy operations, which are going to be faster usually than pandas, because pandas has the overhead of worrying about columns and everything, NumPy will just treat all the same and just do the calculation faster. Okay, that's a lot of numbers. Let's make that. So the last thing I wanted to show is the matplotlib. This is really useful because pandas does some plotting, but if you want to do like any type of plotting for the most part, so long as you don't care about it looking like perfect, you can use matplotlib. And so that's us using plot right here, and we're treating the data set as an image, which is just, this is why it looks so terrible, but this gives us some look at it of maybe what this would look like. It's more so just an example of using that function than to actually do that. We do some other things here. I'm just going to skip that. This is getting into the NumPy stuff. But I mostly just said, like, if you know of a math operation or function, you can just Google it and you'll find it. One thing that you wouldn't inherently maybe think of is that random variables. So NumPy has a .random like package package, I guess. or module maybe it would be, that has a bunch of different ways to generate random numbers. So you can generate a normal distribution, a uniform distribution. I'm not sure how many different distributions they have. They don't have like every single one, but they have several distributions you can use and a bunch of different ways of doing random number generations. So that can be really useful. SciPy, I'm mostly going to just skip. SciPy just offers a couple extra things that more specific to like science. So if you're wanting like a constant type of variable, like in this example right here, we're getting the constant g or the speed of light right there. So yeah, so you'll get your constants from there that are like science, more science related. So good to. Signal processing is another thing you can do with SciPy. Usually I don't use SciPy for this type of stuff, but you could do something like that. You can see how like we're getting all the lines out of this image here. Okay, the last thing here is scikit-learn. Scikit-learn is related to SciPy. It builds off it, and it has several things that can be useful. But the main thing is I would use it for is basically a machine learning library. It offers a bunch of different ways you can do bunch of different functions for different types of machine learning. And so here we're just showing the types of like ones that do dimensionality reduction, where we take something that has a bunch of values. So for PCA, for example, right here, it will take something that has like a bunch of rows. We have like 1,000 different columns for like a bunch of rows. We can use PCA to find like basically the most important columns and that would be least correlated. And so that can basically reduce your rows, number of columns, to a smaller number, which would be more manageable for some type of other machine learning algorithm. In this example, we do, I think I just use it, I use PCA just for the plotting. So I say, we just plot it into, because you can't see, like a 30-dimension thing, you can't plot that. So we use PCA and also TSNE is the other one we use, where it just reduces the number of variables to a smaller set so we can actually visualize it. And so when we visualize it, we see these 3 different clusters of the 3 different types of flowers. And so that just helps us to be like, okay, there's actually a difference in this data set. Yeah, okay, let's see. Oh, and that's the end of this one. So any questions on just all that stuff? Hopefully it was more so a like reminder of what we talked about last term. But any questions? Well, I get some water. Yeah.
So the syntax that's being used,
Kim does.
it's this is all Python, yeah?
All Python.
Okay.
Yeah. Python is wonderful for this type of stuff because for the most part, all these libraries are written like in C or C++, and so they're fast. It's just the Python overhead that's slow. And so if you're trying to do something like loading a bunch of data sets, you're like, oh no, I shouldn't use Python. Actually, you can if you're using pandas. Or another thing we've been talking about is polars. Is that how you say it, polars? Yeah, like polar bears with an RS at the end. But that's like the new go-to instead of pandas because it can use multiple cores and threads, where pandas is, I believe for the most part, single-threaded, or at least it doesn't fully take advantage of your cores.
So the difference with NumPy was, or not NumPy,
Pandas.
Pandas was made completely in Python, whereas Polars is made in Rust. So it is much better for data management. Faster.
Yes.
Default.
Because of the Python overhead. But pandas uses NumPy underneath, I believe, right? So that's what makes it faster? Because there's no way it's going to do it all in Python. I'm pretty sure.
I think it's just a different architecture.
Okay. Well, ultimately, you can use, I think it's called Dask, and Polars is like the faster way of doing things if you're doing like big data that you want to like really get everything out of your CPU. For the most part, pandas is just, you can use pandas. Okay, I think that's basically it for those things. Any other questions? Okay, so I want to open this up to a couple different like polls and just things. For the first off, let's bring up the TensorFlow PyTorch thing. So if you're not aware of TensorFlow or PyTorch, TensorFlow and PyTorch are both frameworks or libraries for doing deep learning. They allow us to make neural network models. Let me think if there's anything else to them really. Like basically, you can make a neural network model. You can train a neural network model. You can do inference with them. TensorFlow is not as Pythonic, or like it just doesn't fit naturally into Python and the philosophy of programming in Python as much. But it has a sub library called Keras that builds on TensorFlow that makes a lot of things really easy to make a neural network. And that's what we've been talking about a lot when we've taught TensorFlow, is we use Keras. And Keras allows us to make those neural networks like in just a couple lines of code and stuff, and do the training and everything really easily. PyTorch has a lot built on it, so it's almost like Keras in some regards, but it also has a lot of manual boilerplate that you have to also code in. So TensorFlow has something called a fit function where it will just instantly train your data set, where you just call .fit and you pass in your data set and your parameters and it just trains. Where PyTorch doesn't actually have a fit function, you're supposed to code it yourself, but it's only 3 lines of code to get a decent, it can get 50 lines of code sometimes, how complex you want it to be training, but it gives you full control on how you want to do your training. And so it allows you to do a lot more customization, different optimizations, different how you want to display what your training looks like, things like that. So TensorFlow is really good for just at least Keras is really good for just simple types of models that have existed for a while, nothing cutting edge. It also removes a lot of actually what's going on because you're just calling your .fit function and everything. PyTorch is a little more hands-on, shows a little more of what you're doing, but it's really useful because a lot of research is released in it. So if you're doing something cutting edge, someone might have already made something that you can use for it, so you don't have to re-implement it based on a paper. It also has it just follows a more Pythonic way of doing things, and it's efficient doing it in a Pythonic way. Where TensorFlow 2.0 kind of fixes this, but still it's not. It's just on par with PyTorch, but it's just not that great for doing a Pythonic way of doing things. So ultimately, that's why I'm more so for PyTorch, because it has more availability of a lot of research is released in it. It allows you to do a lot of more advanced things easier. And it shows also what we're actually doing instead of just calling that .fit function. With that said, does anyone have a preference of what we teach? Because we have been teaching TensorFlow. No preference?
PyTorch.
Really? Okay, Jeff says PyTorch.
I'm just happy to gain experience.
Yeah. Dr. Fitz, do you have any preference?
Nope.
Would
I don't really know either of them.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, don't ask Aaron. Well, basically, I think we'll probably move to PyTorch. Yes, PyTorch are also, in addition, is very nice because a lot more things are released in PyTorch. And they're also, I'm pretty sure, Hugging Face. So Hugging Face uses both, but PyTorch is more prevalent. Hugging Face is a website that's kind of like GitHub for models. And see, if you want a model, you can just download it. It's really nice because most of us don't have the resources or time to go get a data set and train it to do some type of machine learning thing. If you want a natural language understanding model, you just go to Hugging Face. I'll literally demonstrate this real quick.
Is this like transfer learning, or you have?
You can do transfer learning with it, but some of these models are just good by themselves. So if you want GPT real quick, there is no chat GPT. Sorry about that, but we can go here, and you can see an action right here. My name is Claire, and I'm a writer, and then it's filling in the rest right there. So if you want to chat GPT, this is a pretty fairly big model, 6 billion parameters. Not sure, it's 20 gigs, I think. So you're probably not going to easily run that on your computer. But you could maybe try to find a smaller model of such. But the benefit here is that PyTorch and TensorFlow are in this, but they probably made this using PyTorch likely. Also, PyTorch just does a lot of things easier. So that's why I think we'll be converting to PyTorch. Yeah, we'll have to make our lessons a little more focused on it, but it'll be great. Another thing we may be using more is because of just recent advances and just the efficiency of using other people's models that are already trained, is we'll be using Hugging Face, which has their own, if I click on this, will it show it? Their own, no, it won't. They have their own package called Transformers. It uses multiple different backends, TensorFlow, PyTorch, JAX, it looks like too. but it does like transformers really easily, which means you can do natural language processing with like 3 function calls. Actually, I think they might demonstrate it right here. Let's see. Yeah, 3 function calls. You import, you create the tokenizer and model, and next thing you know, you can do, do they show it? They don't show it. Next thing you know, you can do natural language processing, modeling, predictions, filling in as GPT does right here. So yeah, it's really useful. We'll be maybe covering some of that. We'll be focusing a little more on natural language this semester. Just easy processing of like what's like NLP look like laid back without deep learning. And then we'll also get into some GPT stuff or BERT type of algorithms, or neural network algorithms, to just get a little more into that, which is cool because like ChatGPT is recently came out and is like changing everything. And so it's kind of nice to have like a background of like if someone's like, hey, you know machine learning, what's this? You can be like, well, and explain. So yeah, that's basically it for that one. So it looks like nobody was opposed to doing PyTorch, so we'll likely be going to PyTorch. What do you mean?
There was a question.
Oh, there's a question. So the framework we're discussing right now?
What we've discussed.
So we've talked about pandas, NumPy, SciPy, scikit-learn, TensorFlow / Keras, and PyTorch. Those are all the things I just named in the last little bit. We're gonna, instead of TensorFlow, be focusing on PyTorch. Okay, I think that concludes that part. So any questions, we can open this up to just general AI things, data science, anything anyone's interested in, you can just pick my brain on. If there's anything you would like us to maybe talk about this semester, I'm not sure if we're gonna, because I just said we're mostly doing natural language processing. So if you're like, I like computer vision, can we talk about computer vision? Then maybe we can throw that in one of our workshops.
I can give a plug for the data fest.
Yes.
Tell you what I can. So I went to the organizer meeting or town hall for the ASA, American Statistical Association Data Fest, which we're going to host here on April 14th through 16th. That weekend, it's like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right here on campus. So we're hoping to get a strong teams from Stack State. And last year we went to Chico, so that was fun. We're going to host them here this year.
Traveling this year.
But the data set looked really cool. I was excited about it. Just the only hint I can say is I'm not allowed to reveal what the data is, but I'll just say we need to work on our text process. Let's get good with
That's a very big hit.
It is very well. It's very general though too, because there's a lot of different types of text.
There's all kinds of things to do with that.
Yes.
So I don't want to go
Are we
anymore
predicting
than that.
spam classification? Read his face, poker face, though.
Text is and like just skill in manipulating strings, regular expressions, all these basic skills. Strings and text would be good for the data test. But start thinking about teams. We're thinking teams of what, 6, right? That's what
we did something like that last time. Yeah.
5 or
Yeah.
6.
I think literally we formed our team there or along the way, right? I don't know, but yeah, it would be useful to form your teams. Actually, no, we did form, I think, like a week before. Yeah, so if you're trying to do that, get connected. You can ask in the Discord if you're trying to find a team or something. Yeah, it's gonna be great, and we're not gonna have to drive to Chico.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone any questions, anything where they'd like to steer this conversation to?
Are there any stat classes that you recommend to take?
Oh, well, you've got to take any class Dr. Fitz is teaching. That's my suggestion. I took 128. That was really good. 129 is really good. Is there another one, Dr. Fitz, now?
Linear models.
Linear models. That's
96L. That's the newest one.
Yes. So those 3 are pretty good classes. I haven't taken the linear models one, but all the others are really good. So, yeah. All right.
And besides that, how did you guys prepare for data fest in previous years?
Ooh, did we prepare? Actually, so we will talk about this. We'll have a meeting. Actually, I think, so wait, the Data Fest begins on Friday?
Yes.
Okay,
Friday,
so
like
then
5.
Okay, we'll try to fit in a meeting beforehand, like the week before or such. I don't know if we'll have something else, but we'll at least try to talk a little bit about the data fest and preparing specifically for it. But from my experience last time, it was a mess, and I'm allowed to talk about it, right? I think that now,
You can talk about
okay. Yeah, after I'm like, I remember when the meeting was a kid. So I actually have the stuff still on my laptop, like it's right here. Oh wait, no, I delete. Oh, they made us delete the data set, but I have our notebook on it.
That's okay. You can show everything because
They didn't let us keep it.
after May or something.
Okay, but they didn't let us keep the data set. Like they made us delete it. All right, so you can see that like I'm using a lot of pandas right here. This is all messy. It's really messy. So yeah, just a lot of pandas. We're making plots, and the thing that we took, the big takeaways from the Data Fest last year were there's a lot of data, a lot of things that you have to like quickly get up to date. What is this? What are we doing? So you have to like, so when I covered like what data science is, you have the math, statistics, computer science, and then you have the domain business knowledge type of thing. Well, for the most part, we'll very likely have no domain experience with whatever the heck the data set's on. So it might be like natural language processing, and it might be like medical data. Probably unlikely because of HIPAA stuff, but like possible. Or it'll be something like some science papers, or who knows. But it'll be something that we probably not all of us are experts in the domain. So they'll hopefully have a lot of resources. That's what they had last time. A lot of documentation, a lot of just things explaining what is this data. And that's something you just have to like find how to like quickly skim through what we actually need to find. And that was a hard thing because the Data Fest last time was open to, was relatively open of just find a good insight and present it in a way that's just as interesting and means something. And that was difficult because it's not like they're saying, oh, filter the data and prove to us whether this is useful. Like I think that was one thing they actually did say you could do, but like prove to us from this data X or Y. They're not saying that. They're not saying which variables to be focusing on. They just are giving you this large data set and saying, do something with it and make a presentation about it, find findings that mean something. There are, I think, some things that they do want you to say, but you can do like additions or whatnot. So that is something where you have to have like your team set up that you can easily explore the documentation, easily find what you want to say. And I think a problem that happened last time was our team, we like found results, found that these results weren't true. And so basically we spent the whole weekend saying, looking into these, like if there was a correlation between these two things or whatnot. And we found like, we concluded there's not. And so then we're like, oh no, that's not cool to present because you need to present on something that's like, sounds cool. Like we found this correlation, not that there's no correlation between. So we saw that other teams did the exact same thing, but ended up just saying there was a correlation because of whatever statistical things they did. We were just like, wait, no, there's no correlation. What are you talking about? One thing to...
If these two presentations were like diametric.
There were, and we were like, what? Like they were different, but same. Like the ultimate finding was like saying we were saying the finding didn't exist, and the other team was saying the finding exists, and it's a lot cooler to say the finding exists. So when a statistician can make up anything, that might be useful. but really, what you want to do is you want to build have a variety of things you're looking for, so that you have very likely chance of like proving one of them is true, and then you can talk. It's like subtly, oh, this isn't the case, but it's always nice to say something is the case. Let me think of anything else. So yeah, pandas is one thing we used a lot. So that's what we'll be covering this term a couple times, like using it in all of our things so that we just get used to using it. Pandas is just, for the most case, likely what we're going to be using to load the data set. Because it's natural language stuff, there might be some type of different thing we might want to use also, but pandas for the most part is useful to manipulate the data set. If it's just like pure text type of things, we might want to mess with something like, sometimes like it's an XML or HTML, so we might mess with some types of ways to like load HTML and load XML. But for the most part, we'll be using pandas to manipulate the data. I haven't fully looked into what specific type of like natural language processing tools we'll be using. Dr. Fitz mentioned like regex. That is one thing we'll use, but I'm not sure if there's going to be a more advanced natural language processing module we'll be using or package. I know there's a couple in Python, but I haven't looked into which one I want like us to focus on. Yeah, any other questions, like specific questions from last year's Data Fest that people would be curious about?
What's the duration? So you said a weekend.
Yeah.
So
it's, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it was like Friday to midnight, and then 8 in the morning or so to like midnight again, I think. And then you had till the afternoon of Sunday. It was like roughly that.
You guys were on site?
Yeah, we were on site. Yeah, in Chico. Yeah, and so like we showed up late. We weren't like super competitive, like, oh my gosh, we got to get there exactly in time and stay there till midnight. But it was like we needed some time. But it was also a lot of the problem was just like figuring out what are we gonna do, who should be doing what. There was like, I remember on our team, 2 of us were doing basically the same thing, just coming from like a different perspective, which might have been like just like redundant. So like maybe we didn't need to do that, but we just couldn't figure out how to do this one thing. So we're like putting multiple people on it. Yeah, I don't honestly fully remember because it was a full year ago, but there was a lot of things where we just spent a lot of time. Like what I do remember is we spent like the whole Friday to midnight or so trying to figure out like what is this data to begin with. And that's something where you want a full understanding of the data, but you also want to like quickly get into like where can we actually do something, because you also have to make your presentation. And some teams, they must have spent a lot of time on that presentation because their presentation was way up there. Where if you were a team just focused on getting the insights, then your presentation might not look as good. So there's definitely a balance between good presentation, good insights, and a good understanding of what you actually are doing. Because you could just like present an insight that sounds cool, but it may not actually be correct or not. And hopefully they've got judges this time that are going to be like, okay, that's kind of sus, because that's what happened last time, and the judges weren't saying, oh, that's sus. No. So yeah, hopefully.
There's also different categories, like
yes.
What is it, best visualization?
Yeah, best visualization, best insight, or something like that, and I forget the third one, but yeah. So that's something where it's like if your team just wants to focus on visualization, you can do that. I remember there was some type of thing a team did that they weren't technically allowed to do.
they did a video.
Oh, so you're not allowed to do a video, I guess. Who knows if that actually is the rules now? But yeah, so there'll be some things that you're not allowed to do, but you're allowed to like make your visualization so good that who cares about your data? Like you could talk about like something as like, I don't know exactly what the problem will be, but like last time there was like, it was a video game and there was just basically a bunch of logs from the video game. And so one thing we could have done is just said like, how many people finished the game or something like that? How far did each person get? What's that look like? How often did they cascade or whatever? And then we could have just had really nice visualizations for it all. And we might have won that part. And then also the other one was overall, what was the best presentation, I think was one of them. Yeah.
So because I want to get, if I'm interested in this competition,
Yeah.
I don't want to get conscious. So you said you were given a game, so you're allowed to discuss it.
Yeah, I wish like I had more of what that data was, but yeah.
So you were given the time period, beginning of the player,
And so they'll be using a completely different data set, I would assume. But
during that time.
during that time, what they gave us was they gave us a bunch of files. They give us a little USB. You plug in the USB, you copy the files to your computer or whatnot. And they had so much data. Like, I mean, they had logs. They had all the logs from the game for each player. And then they had documentation of what each variable meant. But sometimes that documentation wasn't clear of like, what is this variable actually standing for? So that wasn't like fun because you have to like guess the like, we're assuming it says, it was very messy. You had like a dictionary like where it describes what type of variable means what. But some of it was very difficult to find like what you could do with it.
I think the consensus among all the organizers was that was too much.
Yes, it was a lot.
Like it was just too much complexity. So I don't think other data sets have been as complex. I don't think this one is going to be as.
So that's reassuring because yeah, I've only done the data fest once. So It possibly could be like, I'm really trying to like, I'm gonna have to brainstorm what could this data set be. If we have the hint that it's natural language processing or it deals with it, I'll think more on that. But I know, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to like not be presenting and think about it myself later, and I'll put it in the Discord. Go ahead.
Were you allowed to ask questions about the set?
I honestly don't remember. I don't know if the judges were, so there were people, there were like volunteers that knew things. But the judges, I don't think actually could help us. But like the volunteers could help us to some degree, I think. But like not really. It was, for the most part, it was just like our team trying to figure out the things.
They were just like able to give us advice.
Yes, advice of like what you should maybe pursue or not. But for the most part, it would be like your team.
Yeah, mostly it was like you couldn't answer most of like coding questions, so it kind of like stuck on some code. You pretty much have to just Google stuff majority of the time.
And it would likely be like very particular to what your team is focusing on. Because like in the beginning, I think like one of the things we really wanted to do last time was we wanted to find a correlation to, so like the game was about, I forget exactly, but it was basically like gave a bunch of decisions in life and was trying to like teach people what was good and what was bad kind of thing. And then based on that, you would try to like, we were trying to tell if how engaged they were, how likely like they would get into, like how well they would do in school, or if they would be more prone to drug use or something. Like it was that type of stuff. I don't remember exactly, but it was something like that. And so that was like one of the things like people were really trying to show is like how involved were the users, and if they like stopped being involved, or how many points they got in the game. But a lot of it was very unclear. But like Dr. Fitz said, it likely won't be like that difficult of a data set. So hopefully it'll be a little simpler to start up. But yeah. Did I answer your question? I honestly forgot what it was. So, any other questions with that?
We'll also have to like sign an NDA for the data stuff.
Did we have to do that?
Yeah, we did at the
Okay.
beginning because it's like we cannot release it since other places are doing the data fest.
Yes.
So yeah, we just cannot make anything public about it until like all the data fests around the world are done.
Yeah.
Which if it isn't, you have violated on record.
Well, I just have my.
I'm pretty sure it's expired at this point.
Yeah, so you can see me reading the logs right here. We have the scores, the log headers, and the logs. Do we get any more information here? No. This is a big bunch of rows, but that doesn't mean anything.
So
Yeah.
who's good at statistics then?
But it's a hard thing because you also like have to be, you need to know some statistical things because you want like that, and that's actually what was different for my team, because my team went from more of a statistical side of things, of like I'm pretty sure we had like a hypothesis test proving things, showing we failed to do it. Other teams did not focus on the statistics. They just were like, hey, there looks like a correlation, like using just like graphing it, there looked like a correlation, so that was enough. Where we actually were doing like tests and stuff. So that's something where you can consider of like how useful is this, because one mistake I think we made is you're presenting possibly to an audience, I don't know, like we'll know who the judges are when we get there, and I think we'll get a little background. But some of the judges might have no statistical background. They don't care about a hypothesis test. They just want to know it's supported, and then you can always have like backup slides or whatever where it's like, yeah, we could prove that this is if we're questioned about it, but this is the case, and this is the brief reason why. Look at this plot. It kind of shows why. We explain the plot, that's why. They don't need to test, and what is your null hypothesis, what is your alternative? That's kind of the mistake we went. You still want evidence, but you want it in a way that's just easy to digest. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yeah. You can keep on.
No. Okay. So my screen's, when I click, yeah, I am. Or are you just not showing?
Well, I'm not recording it.
Disconnected. Okay. Any other things? Okay. Well, I guess that's basically the end of this meeting. I'm glad y'all were able to come. Hopefully we will have our meetings at 3 p.m., but we may do 2 p.m. We'll see. We'll communicate in the Discord. If you're not officially in the club, come to me. We can talk about getting officially in the club. It's on the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, come to me and I can share the Discord to you. So if you wanted to scan that, you can officially join the club. Sometimes the website's weird. It won't let you join or whatever. I can like manually add you possibly, but yeah, okay. That's basically it. If you have any questions, I'm always in the Discord. Sometimes I'm like, do a lot of meetings, so I'm always in like do not disturb mode, and I always forget to change it. I just changed myself to online now, but if you just like, if I don't respond in a day, then just message me again. But yeah, if you ask questions, I love to answer them. Any machine learning thing, I'm interested in. If you get me on the topic of AGI, I'll talk to it for like a whole day straight. So you can definitely pick my brain on that.
Say bye.
Bye. I love her. Like I love our meetings. I feel like it's so cringe, but it's like on the video. Whoever's watching the video, it's like.
No, it's got it all, man. It has the